Hey everyone, and welcome back. Today we're going to be taking a deep dive into the world of fintech.
Ooh, fintech exciting.
It is exciting stuff, and especially this company we're going to be talking about today, SoFi. They're making some pretty big waves in the industry,
Yeah, definitely a company to watch.
for sure. And we've got some analysis here suggesting that SoFi could be on the verge of a huge stock surge.
Huge. Like, how huge are we talking?
Well, potentially hitting $170 per share.
Wow, that's a pretty bold prediction.
It is a bold prediction. So we're going to be digging into that today, see if this potential is actually real and, what it could mean for, any of our listeners out there who are maybe thinking about investing.
Exactly. We're going to break it all down for you.
All right, so we're looking at this article. It's called SoFi, The Future of Finance and the Stock Market Rise.
Catchy title.
It is. So let's jump right in. I guess the most attention-grabbing thing right off the bat is that SoFi's stock has jumped like a crazy amount since July.
Yeah, it's up 116%.
116%. What is driving that kind of momentum?
Well, there are a couple of big factors at play here. First, you've got Anthony Noto. He's the CEO over there.
Okay, and he came from Twitter, right?
Yeah, he was a former Twitter exec. Now he's heading up SoFi, and he's made some pretty significant changes, I gotta say.
Okay, so he's the brains behind the operation.
You could say that.
So how has he actually, transformed SoFi?
Well, he's shifted their focus. I mean, they used to be mainly about refinancing student loans, but now he's building what some people call a super app.
A super app, okay.
Yeah, basically it's like a one-stop shop for all sorts of financial services,
Yeah.
your banking, your credit cards, mortgages, investments, all that stuff.
Oh, wow. So instead of having to go to, 5 different companies for all those things, you can just do it all through SoFi.
Exactly, that's the idea.
That's pretty convenient.
It is, and
Mhm.
they're not just dabbling in these different areas either. In 2022, they secured a national banking charter.
What does that mean exactly?
Well, it means they can hold deposits and issue loans just like a regular bank.
Ah, okay. So they're like a legitimate financial institution now.
Right, and that gives them a lot more control over their profits. They're not so reliant on other lenders anymore.
I see. So they're really building out this whole, financial ecosystem.
Yeah, they are.
But what does that mean for the average person, someone who's not a financial expert?
Well, it could mean more options for you, better rates on loans, maybe even just, better ways to manage your everyday banking.
Okay. So there's a potential benefit for consumers there.
Definitely. And this whole shift has also helped SoFi become profitable.
Mhm.
They're not just burning through cash to grow anymore. They're actually making money.
That makes a lot of sense. So we've got this company with a bold vision, a CEO who's making big moves, and now they're profitable. Is that what's driving this crazy stock surge?
It's definitely a big part of it. Investors are getting excited about SoFi's potential, and the numbers seem to back it up. They reported $2.7 billion in revenue for 2024.
2.7 billion. That's huge.
Yeah, it is. It's a 26% increase from the year before.
Wow. So they're really on this upward trajectory.
They are. And, their CEO, Anthony Noto, he seems pretty confident about their future, too.
Yeah. What makes you say that?
Well, he's been buying up SoFi stock himself.
Really?
Yeah, which is usually a good sign.
It shows he believes in the company.
Exactly. You don't always see CEOs putting their own money on the line like that.
That's a really good point.
Mhm.
Okay. So we've talked about the company itself,
Mhm.
the leadership, their performance. But our source also mentions this other factor that could play a role in SoFi's future, and it's this government agency called the Department of Government Efficiency, or Doge.
Doge, huh? And just to clarify, this has nothing to do with the cryptocurrency,
Right. This Doge is all about cutting government spending and tackling the national deficit.
which is a big one right now.
It's sitting at $1.85 trillion.
Yeah. So they've got their work cut out for them.
For sure. But you might be wondering, what does this government agency have to do with SoFi?
Yeah, it seems kind of random.
Right. What's the connection here?
Well, one of the ways Doge is trying to reduce spending is through potential layoffs in the public sector.
Okay, so less government employees.
Right now, imagine all those people suddenly needing to refinance loans, maybe find new banking solutions, or even start their own businesses.
And those are all areas where SoFi excels.
Exactly.
So this potential wave of people needing financial services could be a huge opportunity for SoFi.
It could be, and they're already in a good position to help these people out, with all the products and services they offer.
It's like they're in the right place at the right time.
You could say that, but Doge's impact could go beyond just layoffs, too.
Oh, really? In what way?
Well, they're also putting a lot of money into AI, to automate government
And,
processes.
and SoFi uses AI too, right?
Yeah, they're using it for credit analysis and stuff, so there could be some really interesting synergies there.
That's fascinating. So we've got Kusai's own growth. their CEO, the potential boost from Doge, and of course this massive stock surge. But is SoFi really the future of finance?
That's the big question, isn't it? And it's something we'll have to explore further. You know, they're doing a lot of things right, but there are also challenges and risks to think about.
Okay, so we need to dive a little deeper to get the full picture.
Exactly. There's always more to the story.
All right, well, sounds like we've got a lot more to unpack.
We do. Stay tuned.
Okay, so we've talked a lot about, SoFi's growth and this potential stock surge, but let's bring it back down to earth for a minute. Like, what does this all mean for the average person?
That's a good question. We can throw around all these numbers and figures, but the real impact is how these changes could actually affect your financial life.
Right, exactly. And SoFi's success could be a sign of this, this bigger trend, this shift away from traditional banks and towards these, more personalized, tech-driven experiences.
Yeah, think about it like imagine a banking app that anticipates your needs, gives you advice that's tailored to you and just seamlessly integrates with every part of your financial life.
Okay, yeah, that would be pretty amazing.
It would make things so much easier, less stressful.
For sure. And that could be especially helpful for, people who haven't always had the best experience with traditional banks.
Yeah, you're right. Like, think about small business owners, entrepreneurs, freelancers, people who need more flexibility and, more innovative financial tools.
So SoFi could be a game changer for them.
It really could.
It's about giving people more control over their money and their, financial well-being.
Absolutely.
Okay, so let's go back to that kind of provocative question that our source posed.
Yeah.
If SoFi actually hits that $170 per share target,
Yeah.
what would that tell us about the future of finance?
Well, it would be a huge validation of this whole, fintech model.
Right, like it's not just a fad, it's the real deal.
Exactly. It would show that people are ready for a new way of banking, and it might even force traditional banks to, step up their game, start innovating more to stay competitive.
Oh, that's interesting. So it could create this ripple effect across the whole industry.
It could, we might even see big banks trying to acquire these, up-and-coming fintech companies like SoFi.
Right. They want a piece of the action.
Exactly. The whole landscape could change. But, we also have to be realistic. Investing always has risks. And while SoFi looks promising, there are no guarantees.
That's a good point. You always have to be cautious.
And, it's important for anyone listening to do their own research, understand their own risk tolerance, make sure they're diversifying their portfolio. Don't invest more than you can afford to lose.
Couldn't agree more. Solid advice.
Oh, thanks. Now, there are some other things to think about, too, when we're looking at SoFi's potential. One thing that comes to mind is the competitive landscape.
Right. SoFi isn't the only fintech out there.
No, they're definitely not. There are lots of other companies, both established players and new startups, all vying for, the same customers.
So how does SoFi stack up against its competitors? What are their strengths and weaknesses?
Well, one of their biggest advantages is just the breadth of their offerings. They're not just focused on one niche. They're trying to be that one-stop shop for all your financial needs.
Right. That super app strategy we talked about.
Yeah, that's a key differentiator. And they've also built up a pretty strong brand reputation, especially among younger generations.
Yeah, they're seen as modern, tech savvy.
Exactly. But they face challenges too, of course.
Like what?
Well, regulation is a big one. The financial industry is heavily regulated, and SoFi has to constantly navigate all these rules and requirements.
Right. It's one thing to disrupt an industry, but you still have to play by the rules.
For sure. And as they grow and expand, they'll need to make sure they're staying compliant.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
What else should we be thinking about when it comes to SoFi's future?
Well, we talked earlier about Doge and those potential government layoffs.
Right. That could bring in a lot of new customers for SoFi.
It could, but we should also think about the bigger economic picture. What if the economy takes a downturn?
Ah, so their success isn't entirely in their own hands.
Exactly. If people are worried about the economy, they might be less likely to take out loans or invest, which could definitely affect SoFi's growth.
It's all connected.
It is. SoFi's story isn't just about one company. It's a window into how all these larger economic forces are shaping the future of finance.
That's a really good point, and it raises some questions for all of us. How are we going to adapt and manage our finances in this, constantly changing world?
That's the big question.
It is something to think about. But before we go too deep into those, existential questions, Let's maybe take a step back and just recap what we've learned about SoFi so far.
All right, so we talked about their
Sure.
impressive growth, the leadership of Anthony Noto, the potential impact from Doge, the competitive landscape, and even, some of the broader economic factors at play.
A lot of information.
There is, but I think one of the key takeaways is that SoFi is more than just a fintech startup. They're becoming a major player in the financial industry.
They are. And with Noto leading the charge and, potentially Doge shaking things up, it could be a pretty interesting time for investors to, start paying attention.
It could be. But as always, do your research, make informed decisions based on your own financial goals.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
Yeah.
That's a great point to end on. We'll be back in a moment to wrap up this deep dive into SoFi and leave you with some final thoughts to ponder. So we've really explored SoFi's journey, from starting out with student loan refinancing to now, becoming this potential financial powerhouse.
It's quite the transformation.
It is. And this whole deep dive, it's been about more than just one company, hasn't it?
It's really about how technology is changing the financial world and what that means for you and me. SoFi's success or even its struggles could be a sign of what's to come for all of us.
Yeah, I think that's a really important point to keep in mind. Remember how we talked about SoFi potentially becoming the Amazon of finance?
Oh, yeah, that's a pretty intriguing idea.
It is. And it got me thinking, what if they actually pull it off? What would that look like for the average person?
Well, imagine, being able to manage your entire financial life in one place. You know, your banking, investments, loans, even insurance, all in one app. Exactly, all in one intuitive platform. It could make things so much simpler and maybe even save you some money.
It's kind of like the ultimate goal of fintech, right?
It is, making finance more accessible, more efficient.
For sure. Especially for people who, might find the traditional financial system a little confusing or intimidating.
Yeah, exactly. But, let's flip the script for a second. What if SoFi doesn't live up to all the hype? What if they don't hit those ambitious growth targets?
That's a possibility too, right?
It is. The fintech landscape is super competitive. There are no guarantees of success.
Right.
If SoFi stumbles, it might tell us that disrupting the financial industry is harder than it looks.
It's a good reminder that there's always risk involved.
Always. So, what should our listeners take away from all of this? What's the big picture message?
What do we want people to remember?
I think the most important thing is that the world of finance is changing rapidly. Technology is driving all this innovation, new companies are popping up, and the way we manage our money is evolving.
Yeah, it's an exciting time, but also a little bit uncertain.
For sure, but whether SoFi becomes the next big thing or, kind of fades away, the forces that are driving them forward, those aren't going away.
Mhm.
Things like AI, personalized services, and just this demand for more accessible financial tools.
Those trends are here to stay.
They are. It's a dynamic and exciting time to be, engaged with your finances, pay attention to what's happening, stay informed, and be open to trying new things.
The adaptable.
Exactly. The future of finance might look very different from what we're used to, and it's up to each of us to navigate those changes.
I love that that's a great way to put it. Well, we hope this deep dive has given you a better understanding of SoFi, the rise of fintech, and, all the factors that are shaping the future of finance. It's a complex landscape, but it's one that's worth exploring.
It is. And, the best way to prepare for the future is to stay curious, keep learning, and keep asking questions.
Absolutely. Until next time, keep diving deep.